"Remove her from this house," Vivienne cross-ordered. "And make sure she understands what happens when servants challenge me." 4 security guards surrounded Black Maid Zuri Bennett in the center of the Billionaire's marble reception hall. Dozens of guests were arriving outside for the Cross Foundation's annual leadership dinner. Crystal lights gleamed above the staircase, musicians performed near the entrance, and every employee had been warned not to disturb Vivienne's carefully planned evening. Zuri had broken that rule 15 minutes earlier. She had found a frightened teenage girl hiding inside the estate's service pantry and refused to surrender her to Vivienne. Now the girl stood behind Zuri while the guards closed in. "Please step aside," the largest guard warned. "No," Zuri replied. "Not until someone tells me why this child is terrified of leaving with you." Vivienne folded her arms. She is confused. Her family hired these men to collect her. The girl gripped Zuri's uniform. "They're not my family." Vivienne's expression hardened. "Take them both." The first guard reached for Zuri's shoulder. 3 seconds later, he was on the floor. The second charged from her left. Zuri redirected his momentum and brought him down beside the first without striking his face. The third attempted to restrain her from behind. She broke his grip, turned beneath his arm and forced him to his knees. The fourth froze. Zuri looked directly at him. "Don't." He ignored her. 5 seconds later, all 4 guards were on the marble floor, stunned but conscious. The reception hall fell silent. Then billionaire Everett Cross entered through the main doors and stared at the scene. His fiancée pointed at Zuri. "She attacked my security team." Everett looked from the fallen guards to the terrified girl hiding behind his black maid. "Those men don't work for me." Before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because Everett believed 4 strangers had entered his estate by fooling his fiancée. He had no idea Vivienne had personally hired them, or that Zuri recognized their fighting method from the night her entire protection unit was betrayed. Zuri had joined the Cross Estate staff 6 weeks earlier. To everyone there, she was a quiet 32-year-old housekeeper who worked efficiently, spoke little and never complained. Vivienne treated her calmness as weakness. She assigned Zuri the heaviest tasks, searched her bag after every shift and warned the other employees not to speak to her during work. What Vivienne did not know was that Zuri had spent 9 years training diplomatic protection teams overseas. She left that career after an assignment known as the Bellhaven evacuation ended in disaster. Her team had been ordered to escort 12 witnesses from a collapsing government facility. But their route was leaked. 4 officers were injured, 2 witnesses disappeared and Zuri was blamed for abandoning her position. She had not abandoned anyone. Someone above her had issued a false command using her identification code. The official investigation destroyed her career before she could prove it. Since then, Zuri had avoided security work. She accepted the maid's position because Everett's estate was near the specialist school attended by her deaf niece, Layla, whom she supported after her sister's death. That evening, while arranging glasses for the foundation dinner, Zuri heard a metal tray fall inside the pantry. She found a 17-year-old girl crouched behind food crates, wearing an expensive grey school uniform. A fresh number had been written across her wrist in blue ink. "My name is Tessa Rowe," the girl whispered. "Please don't tell Mrs. Cross I'm here." Zuri gave her water. "What happened?" Tessa explained that she had been selected for Vivienne's Young Leaders program, which promised scholarships and international internships. That afternoon, several students were brought to the estate to sign final placement agreements. But Tessa overheard Vivienne telling a recruiter that some students would be transferred to private employers using altered guardianship records. When Tessa tried calling her mother, one of the 4 guards took her phone. She escaped through the estate's catering entrance and hid in the pantry. Zuri immediately recognized the number on Tessa's wrist. It was a transport code. During the Bellhaven evacuation, missing witnesses had been marked in exactly the same way. Before Zuri could take Tessa to Everett, Vivienne entered with the 4 men. The confrontation followed. Now Everett stood above the fallen guards, demanding identification. The 4th man reached inside his jacket. Zuri moved between him and Everett, caught his wrist and removed a small radio, not a weapon. A green symbol had been printed on its casing. Zuri's blood ran cold. It belonged to Meridian Response, the private contractor accused of leaking her Bellhaven route. Everett examined the radio. Why would an international security company send men into my home? Ask your fiancé, Zuri said. Vivienne's face tightened. I hired temporary event guards through an agency. I had no idea who employed them. Tessa stepped forward. That's not true. I saw you give them photographs of the students. Vivienne looked at her with chilling calm. You are experiencing emotional distress, Tessa. Your mother warned us this might happen. My mother doesn't even know I'm here. Everett held out his hand. Give me your phone. One of the fallen guards laughed. She won't find it. Zuri knelt beside him. Where did you take the students' belongings? He remained silent. Zuri studied the seams of his uniform. The jacket was new, but a line of white dust marked one sleeve. Old plaster, she said. He was inside the unfinished West Wing. Everett ordered his actual estate security chief to search it. Vivienne stepped toward him. You're allowing a maid to direct your staff? I'm allowing the only competent person in this room to help a frightened child. Everett then faced Zuri. Who trained you? Before she could answer, the guard on the floor spoke. Ask her why 6 people vanished under her protection. Every guest looked at Zuri. Vivienne smiled as if she had been waiting for that sentence. Everett's expression changed. You were at Bellhaven? Zuri nodded. I led the evacuation team. You were blamed for the leaked route. I was framed. Vivienne addressed the gathering guests. Now you understand. She is violent, unstable, and using this confused girl to rewrite her disgrace. Zuri stared at her. How did you know Bellhaven involved a false route? That detail was classified. Vivienne realized her mistake too late. Everett turned slowly toward his fiancée. The estate security chief called from the West Wing. Sir, we found 7 students inside a sealed renovation room. Tessa began crying with relief. But there's something else, the chief continued. A live operations board lists tomorrow's transport routes. Every authorization carries Zuri Bennett's identification code. Zuri froze. Her retired code had been used again. The reception hall lights suddenly went out. When emergency power returned, the 4 fake guards had disappeared. So had Vivienne. Tessa pointed toward the staircase. She took the control tablet. Everett and Zuri ran into the West Wing. They found the 7 students safe, but the operations board displayed an active convoy moving away from the estate. Inside one vehicle was Zuri's deaf niece, Layla. A message appeared beneath the live map. The 4 guards were only the test. Save your niece, or save the other 11 girls. Then the convoy separated in 2 directions. The 2 convoy signals moved in opposite directions. One vehicle traveled north toward the private airport. Its camera showed 11 frightened scholarship students restrained inside a transport van. The second headed south toward the river district. Layla sat alone in the back of a black SUV, her hands free but her hearing device missing. A countdown appeared above both signals. 43 minutes. Everett reached for his phone. I'll send police after both. Z stopped him. Not yet. Meridian Response intercepts emergency channels. If they hear the routes announced, they'll change vehicles. My security network is encrypted. So was Bellhaven. Everett looked at the operations board. What do we do? Zuri examined the live images. The van carrying the students shook whenever it crossed rough road. The camera inside Layla's SUV remained perfectly steady. One feed is pre-recorded. She enlarged the SUV image. Layla repeatedly tapped 2 fingers against her knee. Because she was deaf, she and Zuri had developed silent emergency signals when she was a child. 2 taps meant watch carefully. Layla touched the seat beside her, then pointed toward the window. The same streetlight passed outside 3 times. She isn't moving, Zuri said. The vehicle is parked inside a projection room. Someone is looping the background. Everett checked the map. Then the south signal is false. The location may be false, But Layla is live. The 11 students were truly traveling north, while Layla remained somewhere near the estate. Vivienne wanted Zuri to chase the wrong convoy and leave the students unprotected. Zuri turned toward Tessa. Before you escaped, did you see a black SUV? No, but I heard Mrs. Cross tell someone to prepare the simulation room. Everett's face hardened. There's a crisis training facility beneath the old indoor court. He sent 2 trusted estate officers there without using the radio. Then he and Zuri took a vehicle toward the airport convoy. Tessa remained with the rescued students and the estate physician. As they drove, Everett asked the question Zuri had avoided. Why would Vivienne know your retired identification code? Someone from Meridian gave it to her. Could she have been involved at Bellhaven? She would have been 24. Old enough. Zuri remembered a young administrative observer who had arrived at Bellhaven shortly before the evacuation. The woman wore glasses, kept her hair short and introduced herself only as V. Lark. Vivienne's mother's surname was Lark. Zuri looked at Everett. She was there. His grip tightened around the steering wheel. My fiancée helped destroy your career. She may have done more than that. Zuri used the control tablet to study the airport route. The convoy's tracking code appeared legitimate, but its speed never changed at intersections. It's using an automated path. Another false signal? No. The camera is live, but the location marker is being generated separately. She muted the students' frightened voices and listened to the background. A warning bell sounded every 12 seconds. Then came the low mechanical groan of steel under pressure. Zuri recognized it. They're not going to the airport. They're on the freight ferry crossing the Eastern Channel. Everett changed direction. The ferry terminal was 20 minutes away. The countdown showed 31. Everett contacted the harbor master through a private business line and asked him to delay the ferry without mentioning the kidnapping. The answer came immediately. The ferry had already departed. Worse, it was no longer responding to shore control. At the estate, the trusted officers found Layla inside the simulation room. The door had been wired to trigger a heavy restraint net if opened from the hallway. Layla saw the officers through reinforced glass and signed for them to stop. She then pointed toward the ceiling. Zuri watched through the tablet and understood. Tell them to enter through the ventilation training duct. Everett sent the instruction by text. Zuri signed to Layla through the live camera. Are you hurt? Layla shook her head. Then she signed. Woman in red took my device. For men went to the water. Vivienne wore red. The fake guards had joined the ferry operation. Layla added one more warning. They said the boat will sink. Everett accelerated. At the ferry terminal, they found the harbor office empty and a dock worker unconscious but breathing beside the control desk. The ferry was visible half a mile offshore. It carried no passengers other than the kidnapped students and 4 fake guards. Zuri located a maintenance launch tied beneath the pier. I can get us alongside. You're not going alone, Everett said. You've never boarded a moving ferry. You had never fought 4 guards in my reception hall, yet I trusted you. They entered the launch together. Heavy waves struck the small vessel, but Zuri matched its speed to the ferry and brought it alongside the service ladder. Everett climbed first. Zuri followed. On the upper deck, 2 guards waited. One swung a metal baton. Zuri ducked, trapped his arm and used the railing to bring him to the deck. Everett blocked the second man's path long enough for Zuri to sweep his legs and secure him with a safety cable. The remaining 2 guards appeared behind the vehicle bay. They opened the ferry's side ramp while it was still moving. Seawater rushed across the lower deck. The transport van began sliding toward the open edge. The girls screamed. Zuri ran toward the van while Everett reached the emergency ramp control. A guard blocked her. You should have stayed disgraced. He attacked with the same meridian restraint pattern used at Bellhaven. Zuri anticipated each movement. She turned his wrist, redirected him against the van and forced him down. The 4th guard entered the driver's cabin and released the parking brake. The van rolled backward. Zuri caught the open driver's door and pulled herself inside. She pressed the brake, but nothing happened. The line had been cut. The van continued sliding toward the sea. "Everyone move forward," Zuri shouted. The students crowded toward the front, shifting the vehicle's weight. Everett found a loading chain and fastened it around the front axle. The chain snapped tight with the van's rear wheels inches from the open ramp. He closed the ramp while Zuri freed the students. The harbor patrol arrived moments later and arrested 3 guards. The 4th had escaped into the ferry's engine section. The students identified him as the man who recorded their forged authorization documents. Everett searched the driver's cabin and found a Meridian access card bearing Vivienne's photograph. "She wasn't merely a client," he said. "She was an executive." Zuri turned over the card. Its issue date was 7 years earlier, 2 days before Bellhaven. The ferry's loudspeaker activated. Vivienne's voice filled the deck. "Congratulations, Zuri. You chose correctly. Where are you?" Zuri demanded. "Close enough to finish what Bellhaven started." A sharp vibration shook the ferry. The engine alarms sounded. The escaped guard had locked himself inside the mechanical room and started an overload. If the engine overheated, fuel vapors could ignite. Everett led the students toward the emergency boats. Zuri ran toward the engine stairs. He caught her arm. "You saved them. Let the harbor patrol handle this. The 4th guard has the forged authorization files. Without them, Vivienne will claim these girls volunteered. I'm coming with you." They descended together. Inside the engine corridor, they found the guard unconscious beside an open control box. Someone else had attacked him. The authorization drive was gone. A trail of water led toward a secondary maintenance hatch. Zuri opened it. Vivienne stood inside, holding Layla's missing hearing device and the stolen drive. Zuri stared at her. "You came aboard before the ferry left." Vivienne smiled. "I needed to see whether you were still as good as Bellhaven. Give me the drive. You can have it after you answer one question. Why did your commander order you to abandon the 12 witnesses 7 years ago?" "He didn't. The command was false." "No, Zuri. The recording was real." Vivienne inserted the drive into the engine terminal. An old Bellhaven audio file began playing. Zuri's former commander clearly ordered her unit to leave the witnesses and protect only one unidentified passenger. Everett listened in shock. "Who was the passenger?" Vivienne looked at him. "You." Zuri's face changed. "That's impossible. Damien Cross wasn't at Bellhaven." Vivienne's smile widened. "I'm not talking about Damien. I'm talking about the man standing beside you." Zuri slowly turned toward Everett. Vivienne raised Layla's hearing device. "Tell her your real name, or I erase every file proving the girls were kidnapped." Everett lowered his eyes. "My name isn't Everett Cross," he admitted. Before Zuri could respond, the ferry's emergency system announced that the engine would reach critical temperature in 6 minutes. Then Everett added the final words that shattered everything she believed. "I was the Bellhaven witness your team was ordered to save." The engine alarm echoed through the ferry. 5 minutes and 42 seconds remained before critical overheating. Zuri stared at Everett. "You were inside Bellhaven?" "My real name was Elias Mercer," he said. "I was a forensic analyst for Meridian Response." Vivienne leaned against the maintenance hatch, still holding the stolen authorization drive and Layla's hearing device. "Tell her everything." Everett's face tightened. "At 23, I discovered Meridian was selling witness locations to private clients. Bellhaven was supposed to be a protected evacuation. I copied the payment records and arranged to deliver them to federal investigators. The 12 witnesses were bait," Zuri said. Everett nodded. "Meridian leaked their route to draw attention away from me. Your commander received orders to extract the person carrying the financial evidence. And he sacrificed everyone else. He believed a second team was coming. No second team came. I didn't know that until years later." Zuri remembered the chaos inside Bellhaven, the false directions, sealed doors, and terrified witnesses asking why their rescue vehicles had disappeared. Her team had tried to save everyone despite the extraction order. But Vivienne had controlled the replacement route. You changed the convoy coordinates, Zuri said. Vivienne did not deny it. My father ordered me to separate Elias from the witnesses. You sent my team into an ambush. I sent you away from him. Your commander decided to ignore the extraction order and return for the others. That was our job. And it destroyed your career. The engine temperature climbed higher. Everett stepped toward Vivienne. Give us the authorization drive. She held it above the open machinery. If this falls, the evidence disappears. You're standing on a ferry that is about to ignite. Then stop the overload. Zuri studied the engine controls. The guard lying unconscious beside them had attempted to disable the cooling system, but someone had struck him before he completed the process. Vivienne claimed she had come only to observe Zuri. Yet she had prevented the guard from destroying the engine immediately. You don't want this ferry destroyed, Zuri said. You need something aboard it. Vivienne's gaze shifted toward the lower cargo hold. Everett noticed. What's down there? Nothing that concerns you. Zuri moved toward the cargo stairs. Vivienne reached into her gown and revealed a small remote. One step closer, and every cargo lock seals. The device bore Meridian's green symbol. Zuri looked toward the unconscious guard. A thin wire had been wrapped around his wrist. She understood. He didn't attack you. You used him to connect the remote to the ferry system. Vivienne's expression hardened. You always were observant. But you forgot one thing. Layla's hearing device is broadcasting. Vivienne looked down at the device in her hand. It automatically synchronized with Layla's emergency accessibility app whenever it detected nearby voices. Everything Vivienne had said since entering the maintenance hatch had been transmitted to Layla's tablet at the estate. The rescued students, actual security officers and responding police had heard her confess to altering the Bellhaven route. Vivienne crushed the device beneath her heel. It changes nothing if no one leaves this ferry. She pressed the remote. Steel cargo doors slammed throughout the lower deck. The engine temperature reached the final red zone. 4 minutes remained. Zuri attacked the problem, not Vivienne. She opened the cooling panel and saw that 3 fluid valves had been closed mechanically. She could restore 2 from the engine room, but the third required access inside the sealed cargo hold. Everett examined a diagram. If we open these 2, will it buy time? Maybe 8 minutes. They turned the first valves together. The temperature stopped rising, then dropped slightly. Vivienne ran toward the upper deck. Zuri followed her while Everett opened the second valve. On the vehicle deck, harbor officers were evacuating the students into rescue boats. Vivienne moved unnoticed among them until Tessa pointed. There she is. Vivienne seized Tessa and pulled her against the railing. Zuri stopped several feet away. Let her go. You think dropping 4 rented guards makes you powerful? No. Protecting this girl is what makes me responsible. Vivienne tightened her grip. You failed 12 witnesses. I was denied the chance to finish that mission. I won't fail these students. Everett appeared from the stairwell. The engine system announced an additional 8 minutes. Vivienne looked between them. You still trust him after learning he was the person your team abandoned everyone to protect? Zuri glanced at Everett. I don't trust everything he hid. But his secret didn't put Tessa on this railing. You did. Tessa suddenly lowered her weight and stamped on Vivienne's foot. Vivienne lost balance. Zuri pulled Tessa away while Everett caught Vivienne before she fell over the railing. For one moment, he could have released her. He did not. He dragged his fiancée back onto the deck. You saved me, Vivienne whispered. I saved the truth you'll be forced to tell. Police officers approached, but Vivienne activated the remote again. A small service boat detached automatically from the ferry's stern. She sprayed an emergency extinguisher across the deck, covering everyone in thick white vapor, then ran toward the boat. By the time visibility returned, she was speeding toward the northern shore. She still carried the authorization drive. The ferry's third cooling valve remained sealed. 7 minutes. Zuri, Everett, and 2 marine engineers descended to the cargo level. The steel door required Vivienne's biometric access, But Tessa remembered the 4-digit number written beside her scholarship identification. Every student received a different number, she explained. Mrs. Cross called them placement ranks. Zuri entered Tessa's number. The door opened. Inside were rows of sealed office cabinets rather than ordinary freight. Each carried the name of a Young Leaders Program student. Everett opened one. It contained a complete manufactured identity, educational records, medical history, employment authorization, and a new legal guardian. Vivienne had planned to erase the girls' real identities before sending them to Meridian clients. At the rear of the hold, they found the third cooling valve. But Malcolm Vane, Meridian's current director, stood beside it. He was not one of the fake guards. He was Zuri's former commander. Captain Vane, she whispered. The man who had led her at Bellhaven smiled. You're 7 years late. Zuri felt the betrayal more deeply than any physical attack. You gave the order to abandon the witnesses. I gave the order to protect Elias Mercer. Your refusal forced me to improvise. You testified that I deserted my position. Someone had to carry the blame. Everett stepped forward. You worked for Meridian while pretending to expose them. Vane nodded. And now Vivienne has delivered the only 2 people capable of reopening the Bellhaven archive. The temperature alarm sounded again. 5 minutes. Vane stood on a pressure plate connected to the cooling valve. If I step away, the valve opens, but the cargo hold seals permanently. The 2 marine engineers tried accessing the system, but Vane had disabled its external controls. Zuri examined the floor. The pressure plate required weight, not a fingerprint. She threw a heavy cabinet drawer toward Vane's feet. He kicked it aside. Then he moved at her with the same restraint technique used by the 4 guards. Zuri understood why their attack had felt familiar. Vane had trained them. He struck first. Zuri blocked his arm, but he anticipated her counterattack and forced her against a cabinet. You taught me that move, she said. And I taught you never to repeat one. Zuri changed direction, dropped low and removed his balance. Everett pulled a rolling archive case across the pressure plate as Vane fell away. The weight kept the hold open. Zuri restrained her former commander using his own security belt. The engineers opened the 3rd valve. Coolant rushed through the engine system. Temperature levels began falling. The ferry was safe. Police arrested Vane and recovered the identity cabinets. His radio contained messages between him, Vivienne and the 4 guards, proving the entire event had been staged to force Zuri and Everett together. But one question remained. Why? Vane laughed as officers led him away. Vivienne didn't create the scholarship operation. She inherited it from Elias. Everett stared at him. That's a lie. Check the first identity cabinet. Zuri found a cabinet marked Elias Mercer. Inside was an original Bellhaven file bearing Everett's real photograph and a death certificate dated 7 years earlier. Behind it was a corporate transfer document. After Elias Mercer was declared dead, every Meridian asset he secretly owned had transferred to a protected beneficiary. Everett Cross. Zuri looked at him. You didn't become a billionaire after Bellhaven. You inherited Meridian. I never knew I owned it. Vane smiled. Your fortune was built from every witness we sold. Everett looked sick. A harbor officer approached with an urgent update. Vivienne's service boat had been found abandoned on the northern shore. The authorization drive was gone, but police discovered a live video transmitter. The ferry screens activated. Vivienne appeared inside the original Bellhaven operations room. Behind her sat Layla. Zuri's niece had supposedly been rescued from the estate, but the girl in the simulation room had been another deaf student wearing Layla's clothes. The real Layla had been moved before officers arrived. Vivienne held up the authorization drive. You have 40 minutes to bring Elias Mercer to Bellhaven, she said. Once he enters as Meridian's legal owner, every hidden account will unlock. Everett looked toward Zuri. Vivienne continued. If he refuses, Layla becomes the 13th witness you failed to save. Then demolition barriers began closing around the Bellhaven facility. Everett made his decision immediately. I'm going to Bellhaven. Zuri studied the video. Layla sat calmly despite the restraint around her wrists. Her fingers tapped against the chair. 2 short movements. 3 long. 1 short. A signal they had used since childhood. Control room empty. Vivienne was not physically beside Layla. The image had been combined with a live recording from another room. She's using Layla to make us enter through the main tunnel, Zuri said. That's the trap. Everett examined the original facility map recovered from Vane's radio. A narrow drainage route entered beneath the witness wing. Police surrounded Bellhaven while Zuri and Everett approached through that lower passage. Demolition barriers closed behind them, but marine engineers kept communication active through Layla's hearing device network. They found Layla inside an old interview room. Zuri disabled the simple restraint and embraced her niece. Layla signed quickly. Vivienne took the drive upstairs. She said the billionaire must stand inside the scanner. Zuri sent Layla back through the drainage route with an officer. Then she and Everett entered the operations room. Vivienne stood beside a biometric platform. "Welcome home, Elias." Everett stepped toward the scanner. Zuri stopped him. "The accounts require a living owner. Once they recognize you, Vivienne can move the money." Vivienne raised the drive. If he refuses, every document proving the students were kidnapped disappears. Everett entered the platform. The scanner identified him as Elias Mercer, legal owner of Meridian Response. Thousands of hidden accounts appeared. Vivienne reached for the transfer command. But Everett had already contacted the Federal Financial Crimes Unit from the ferry. His biometric verification did not release the money to her. It froze every account. Vivienne stared at the screen. "What did you do?" "I accepted ownership long enough to surrender everything." The authorization drive automatically uploaded its records to investigators. Student identities, Bellhaven payments, and client names were preserved. Vivienne tried escaping through the main tunnel, but Tessa and the rescued students were watching the operation remotely. Tessa recognized the transport number Vivienne entered and warned police which exit she had selected. Officers arrested her outside. Vivienne, Vane, and the 4 fake guards were charged with kidnapping, conspiracy, identity trafficking, and attempted destruction of evidence. The Bellhaven investigation cleared Zuri publicly and corrected the record that had destroyed her career. Everett surrendered Meridian's assets. The money funded compensation for the surviving witnesses and helped restore every student's legal identity. He also ended his engagement to Vivienne. Months later, Zuri became director of an independent protection academy created inside the former Cross estate. Its first-class trained vulnerable young women in personal safety, emergency response, and leadership. Layla designed the academy's visual alert system. Tessa became its youngest scholarship student. At the opening ceremony, Everett stood before the 4 guards who had once surrounded Zuri, now appearing only in a training recording. They believed 4 men would frighten her into silence, he said. Zuri looked toward the students. "Strength isn't proving how many people you can knock down. It's knowing who must remain standing." Vivienne had sent 4 guards after a woman she believed was merely a maid. Within seconds, Zuri dropped them. But her greatest victory was not defeating those men. It was lifting 12 girls, 1 forgotten witness and her own stolen name back onto their feet.